Welcome to Longevity Industries' presentation of the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. I'm your host, Dean Phillips, and I'd like to thank our sponsor and constant supporter has been the Precision Metal Forming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation for all of their great work. Our guest today is Bill Jordan. He comes to us from Larson Tool, where he is in charge of human resources and also over a lot of the training work that they do over there. Welcome, Bill.
Good morning.
Great to have you, sir. Tell us a little bit about your background and about Larson Tool.
Well, my background is pretty varied. I worked in sawmills. I've been a factory operator at a wire and cable factory. And over the years, I built up my skills through either mentors or got some additional training, worked into becoming a training manager at a wire and cable company. And through that, started working with HR to develop training, and eventually wound up going into HR. I came on board Larson Tool and Stamping Company about 2.5 years ago when their former HR manager was retiring. And one of the requirements from Larson Tool and Stamping was that they brought somebody in who actually had some experience in manufacturing. And I think they were hoping as an individual that had some operator experience. So they'd have a good idea of what the workforce was like and what it needed. And so Larson Tool and Stamping Company has been around almost 100 years now. They formed in 1920. They're a family-owned business. We have about 75 regular employees here. And so we're not huge, but we're not tiny either. And so the goal here is to keep this more of a family-oriented business. All companies this size say that, but Larson Tool and Stamping likes to put that in practice. So they like to make sure that they're treating their employees well and bringing them up in the system and improving their skills so that they'll stay with the company and hopefully retire with the company.
That's a great attitude, and I think it helps to feel like the company is involved with your support and that they want to see you do well because it helps the company do well. And it really is a good practice to have, in my experience, that companies do support their employees. Sometimes, as you mentioned, some companies talk the talk but don't walk the walk, and I know Larson has always been very supportive. Tell me.
Well, and I've worked for companies where they were extremely large, being a subdivision of a large conglomerate when I worked on the West Coast. So being through something like that and having that shut down because it was all about the numbers and not about that personal interaction. So I've kind of seen both ends.
Right. I as well have gone from small companies to large companies and vice versa. And there's no question that there's a difference in the way people are treated. But it also goes to more than that. You either feel like you want to be just contributing your part or you want to be making a difference. I think in a small company, you can really feel like you're making a difference.
Exactly. There's that day-to-day interaction that you can have in a small company going right up to the managers and the principals of the company that you don't have in a larger company. It's a little easier to get to that person that's a little higher up the food chain in a small company because you can walk by and say, hey, what about this? What about that?
Yeah. I agree 100%. Here at the Destiny of Manufacturing, one of the things that we like to hear is tell us what you think is going to change from your perspective as an HR manager. What do you see changing over the next 5 years in order for us to be able to meet our goals in manufacturing? I know that you've been very involved with the PMA's Educational Foundation and through PMA as a whole to help them with the building of their education system. Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel the system's going to help us change and help us adapt?
Well, especially when you look at recruiting now, the economy is doing well. There aren't as many people available out there when you need to hire somebody. So you need to look at what people are out there and how can you attract them. And then what kind of skills do they have? So in the next 5 years, if the economy keeps going strong, it's going to be very difficult to find people with those skills that you need. They're not getting some of the skills that we need through any kind of regular schooling or education. You know, technical high schools are coming on board a little bit more, but you're not able to go out and find those people for a manufacturing environment that you need. When I was in my 20s, the big thing was computer repair. And so now a lot of these technical schools, anything to do with metal forming, the big thing is CNC. But CNC doesn't cover the whole gamut of what companies like us need to do. And so you've got to find ways to get that skill across to those new employees, because you're not going to find that out in the marketplace when you're looking for somebody. And so finding a way to get good, consistent information to those new employees, good training that's affordable, is critical. That's one of the big things out there. There are lots of different avenues. You can buy canned training tapes. You can buy this program or that program, but they're all very expensive and dated. So as soon as they make that program, something new is going to come along and it's going to be out of date. And so one of the things that excites me about the PMA Metal Forming EDU is that it's being built in a platform that can be updated fairly easily.
Right.
And that's one of the big things that I see that we'll need in the industry coming forward, is any kind of education that you can get that's easily adaptable and upgradable.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, it has to be able to be updated, because when I went through a vocational high school, some of the principles were didn't change, but there are so many industries, like if you're in computers or if you're doing anything nowadays with technology and with Internet 4.0 or Industry 4.0 coming along, and the Internet of Things, you find that things are changing much more rapidly, and we have to be able to adapt our training to that. And it's great that you've mentioned that, because it's something I think we are going to be very challenged with, is keeping our employees up to date, even our well-trained ones. Do you think that how does that play into keeping good people? Well,
the workforce that we have, Larson Tool and Stamping, is aging a bit. And so we've got a number of people that will be retiring in the next 5 years. And you just can't go out and find a replacement employee with that skill level. And so I'm desperately looking for ways that I can get information and upgrade the skills of the existing employees. I want to be able to grow our group of people here so that they become the next leaders at Larson, but they also keep up with technology that's out there. I don't want to keep bringing people in that maybe don't know the people here and working at how do I fit them into the culture that already exists here without diluting the culture too much. And so being able to get a scalable platform in, something that can be ever changing. And being a small company, we also will have a number of different skills that we'll be looking for, whether it's quality, whether it's maintenance, whether it's engineering. And one of the great things I like about the Metalform EDU platform is there are programs out there for all of that. And if I get myself a good employee that I want to develop into supervision and leadership, there are programs here for that as well. And on a smaller company with a tighter budget, I'm not going to have to shell out buckets of money to be able to start getting that information to that employee to upgrade their skills.
Yeah, I could see that as a challenge for small to mid-sized companies to try and update the skill set of their employees. Have you found it difficult working with some of the workforce development organizations? Have they did they meet your needs, some of the local workforce development, or did you find that you had to still look more to developing apprenticeships in-house?
Larson Tool had a tool room apprenticeship for quite some time, and that's working well. What we're really trying to build is something for production operators that's along the line of an apprenticeship program. And those workplace development programs, they really don't have a way, at least in this local area, to help you. They want you to fit into their canned program, and they want you to bend to what they want to present to your employees. And so I find that they're not very flexible.
Right.
They want to be cookie cutter instead of, and that really doesn't work in today's society. Cookie cutter just doesn't work. You've got to be able to look at all of the different age groups and the way they've been trained coming up. So when I'm dealing with people that are 18 to 25, they've grown up with computers since before they went to school, or the internet, or phones, or technology is their lifestyle.
Right.
And then I've got people coming in that maybe 40 to 50, they're coming into an operator job, and they've never really worked with computers. So how do you bridge that gap and help both of these diverse cultures succeed? The people who have been brought up in technology and the people who haven't. So how do you blend those together? And that's been a big challenge with outside organizations, is getting something that works for multiple skill levels.
Right. It's funny you mentioned that because we've done some work here in Tennessee with the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And one of the things that they've focused on was exactly what you're talking about, is the diversity of the student body that's coming in. And they teach it where one person may be just starting off, one person may be kind of in their fifth or sixth training session, and how do you manage that? And I think that they've done a good job with educating people at different levels, and they have a program which is open in and open out, so you could start tomorrow, come in there, start training, and you might be training right alongside somebody who's been there for 6 months, but you're learning different things. You may be working on the same thing, maybe machining something, but what you're trying to do is, as somebody who's just starting, you're learning different skill sets than somebody over here who's learning about material science. And I think that that's a very unique approach, but one that is very much needed, and it educates as you go. So their program is paced. It's paced in such a way that the areas that you excel in, you can move through very quickly, and the areas where you may have a little bit more of a struggle, you can learn at a slower pace that matches your skills. And I've always thought that was a really good approach. Have you seen any programs out there that have done that, or does the new EDU system from PMA, is it more of an as-you-go system?
The EDU system from Metal Form, the PMA Association, is letting me do that, and really I can diversify. So I got a employee that came back to the company after leaving for a while. They thought, grass may be greener on the other side of the fence. They decided to come back to the company at a time when they weren't finding those other jobs out there like they thought they would. And so I was able to bring them in and sign them up for the new press training and die setter training through Metal Form EDU, and use that as a refresher. So they were able to go through and confirm, oh yeah, I remember about this, I remember about that. I was a little foggy here, and so we were able to use that as a refresher. Where I've got some people that are coming right in brand new, and I can make that a little more structured for them so that they're learning about these specific lessons I set up, and then they're able to talk with their lead out on the floor, and it makes more sense, and they're learning quicker than they would have others. So I'm looking at this, at least as far as the press training and the die setter training, as both a refresher for people who have been here for a while or who have been out of the system for a while, and using it to accelerate that learning for the brand new individual. The unique thing about this online training is that it's a lot more interactive. It isn't like a video where you're getting one view of something. They're able to give you a better idea of how the equipment actually works. And my previous background was wire and cable up until 2.5 years ago. So I'm even going through some of the courses to learn more about metal forming itself and what the operators out on the production floor here do. So I've got a better understanding of what kind of employees I've got.
Gotcha. So more of an assessment system also.
That's the great thing about this. You can use it for assessment, you can use it for refresher, or you can use it to get that new and initial information to that individual that they haven't been exposed to anywhere else.
Sure. Wow. Not too long ago, the PMA put out an article, and one of the things that it talked about was that if you want to attract millennials to this industry, you need to embrace mobility, as in mobile technology and apps. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm a little bit torn, kind of being an old school HR person, because you've got to be careful about how you present the information, whether they're an hourly employee or a salaried employee, and whether it's required for them to do their job or whether they're looking at it to increase their own skills and it's not required. So, I'm trying to educate myself a little bit more and trying to create an environment where the individual will be increasing their own skills, so as a job comes open, they can be available for that. And being a little old school myself, some of the newer technology is challenging, and so I'm having to educate that myself as well. As I mentioned earlier, the younger population grew up with it, so they expect it in a format that's easy for them to use. Whether it's on a phone, whether it's on a tablet, whether it's computer-based, they want it to be mobile, and they want to be able to get it when they want to get it, which is kind of what we've always been taught in training adults want, is they want to get the information when they need it and when they want it, and it has to make sense at that time. And so we're only going to have to create situations where it is in some kind of mobile platform. It's easy to get to whenever that individual wants to get to it.
What are your thoughts on integrated educational systems that are built into equipment, such as you're working on a machining center and there's a problem, and when you click on a help window, it pops up with varying degrees of how deep into an explanation you want to go to help educate you on what the problem is. Do you feel that those types of systems are helpful, or does it hinder the production cycle because now somebody's taking up machining time by learning on the job? Yes, they're learning on the job, but they're tying up a machine too.
Well, having been a technical trainer in the past, there's always that balance between how fast can you get somebody up to speed to make good quality product that's sellable as quickly as possible. And so you always have to have some time at a machine to be able to train them at that machine. So you'll have to look at how do you balance that so that you get the quality you need, because if you don't get the quality, it doesn't matter how much you make.
Right.
And then get those production levels up. And a new person always works that little bit slower because they're cautious. They don't have that breadth of experience. If my piece of equipment does this, that isn't quite what it's supposed to do, how do I correct that before it becomes a problem with quality or production levels or things like that? So finding a good way to balance that, I think as far as technology, would be a good thing. I've worked in places before where we've developed cheat sheets for people. If this happens, then you make a decision tree. Well, if this happens, then try this. If that doesn't fix it, and one of these two things happens, try that. And so being able to bring that into technology instead of a paper type environment, I think could be beneficial. Anything like that's going to go through some bumps and spurts. And so it depends on how whether it comes from that equipment manufacturer or whatever, but how do you get that so that it's easy to use and functional for those different levels of employees, whether it's a younger technology-driven employee or whether it's a long-term employee who's not so technology-driven. So a good user interface is going to be critical if you put systems like that at the equipment.
Yeah, that's a great point. Bill, I want to thank you for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's time away from your job, and we do appreciate you giving your insight here at the Destiny of Manufacturing podcast. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Precision Metal Forming Association and the PMA's Educational Foundation, for sponsoring the show. Go out there and have a great day.
You're very welcome. I was glad to be part of it, and whatever I can do to help get more information into Larson Tool to make my job easier and better, I'm willing to do.
Thank you so much, Bill. Talk to you soon.
It was nice talking to you, Dean.